Of all the planets, we fear Saturn the most. Saturn has an awful reputation. To ancient astrologers, the planets represented the will of the gods. They had a direct influence upon human affairs. Planet Saturn is named after an ancient Roman god. He was the first god of the capital, known since the most ancient times as Saturnus Mons. Saturn was the god of regeneration, dissolution, plenty, wealth, agriculture, renewal, and liberation. In later developments, he came to be also the god of time. His reign was depicted as a golden age of plenty and peace. But Saturn is also associated with other things, including human sacrifice. Saturn's bad reputation doesn't come from Roman mythology, where he is seen mainly as a force of good. Instead, it comes from Greek mythology, where he is identified as Kronos. Kronos is the son of Uranus, Father Sky, the ruler of the universe, and Gaia, Mother Earth. He is very jealous of the power that Uranus has, and he is willing to castrate him, to overthrow him. Later on, Uranus and Gaia tell Kronos that one of his sons is going to overthrow him in his turn, that there is a prophecy. Kronos goes insane and he begins to eat up his own children as soon as they are born. But of course the prophecy can't be stopped and will come true, as one of his sons, Zeus, will survive. To modern astrologists, the planets represent basic drives or urges in the unconscious mind. They are energy flow regulators representing dimensions of experience. They express themselves with different qualities in the 12 signs of the zodiac and in the 12 houses. The planets are also related to each other in the form of aspects. Modern astrologers differ on the source of planetary influence. Some of them believe that the planets exerted directly through gravitation or another unknown influence. Others hold that the planets have no direct influence in themselves, but are mirrors of basic organizing principles in the universe. In other words, the basic patterns of the universe repeat themselves everywhere. As above, so below. Therefore, the patterns that the planets make in the sky reflect the ebb and the flow of basic human impulses. The planets are also associated with the basic forces of nature. Science hasn't been really interested or even able to prove that planets and planetary movements have any effect on Earth, but they have discovered that planetary cycles have an effect on solar activity. Planetary cycles can combine to produce especially high or low solar activity, and when this happens, the effect on Earth can be quite dramatic by changing the weather. High or low solar activity coincides with different periods in the Earth's climate, like the Little Ice Age during the years 1350 and 1850. The bitter winters of this period of time led to mass starvation and social upheaval in Europe during the 16th and the 17th centuries. Throughout history, Saturn has been associated with the rise and fall of man. Saturn, the timekeeper, measures birth and death. Saturn is slow, but its effect immediate. He requires change and restructuring, responsibility and wisdom. Grow up, he says, or else. Yet, it is extremely difficult to predict whether an important Saturn aspect will lead to a rise or to a fall. The intentions, the psychology of the people involved in a certain situation is extremely important for how things will develop. The most interesting Saturn aspect is the Saturn Return, and that means that transiting Saturn conjuncts natal Saturn. It takes approximately 28 to 31 years for Saturn to make an orbit around the Sun. So every 30 years or so, Saturn will return to the exact degree where it was when you were born, or when a nation was born even. And a great change happens in life that helps you to grow and mature, and if you take responsibility, this process is much easier than if you are trying to be mean, or if you are trying to run away, stick to old ways, because Saturn doesn't allow that, and it can make your life extra difficult. So the first Saturn return is the most important, basically because it's when you finally and definitely step into adulthood. It's when you find your purpose, you know who you are. Maybe you have some kind of adult responsibility around that time. Maybe you are going through a divorce as well, but if you are doing things in a way that you make sure that you have done everything right, Saturn will also eventually reward you. The second Saturn return is happening around 60, when you approach 60. Around that time, something significant can happen as well. You can have your first grandchildren, or something else important happens, and you reach another sense of maturity. The third and usually last one happens when you are approaching 80, and that's when you feel that you have reached that wise old age. Basically, Saturn has to do with our psychological maturity, with our psychological development, and you can also call it spiritual development also, because usually it is said that the end goal isn't important, but the journey there, and that's what Saturn is basically about. There are two forces that can affect people and things at a distance. One is gravity, another electromagnetism. It is the moon's gravity that creates the tides, but the moon's electromagnetic field is quite insignificant. It's not inexistent, but still random and scattered. While there is evidence that electromagnetic fields easily influence people's moods, behaviors, and morality, there isn't any suggestion that gravity has a similar effect. The moon's and the sun's gravity influence Earth the most. It's gravity that makes the planets in the solar system stick together. But the gravity of all other planets in the solar system put together do not have enough strength to throw the Earth off its course. Therefore, certain alignments between planets can never destroy Earth. I guess that at the moment it is quite impossible to find any kind of validity that is scientific when it comes to astrology. Should any scientist come close to any kind of conclusion, they immediately also turn it around and they try to hide from it because they don't want to be associated with astrology that is seen as highly unscientific. You can actually take and use astrology as you wish. It can be a tool that directs your life, or it can be entertainment or something to look forward to. Maybe you are a believer and still you are not, and it doesn't really matter because astrology is still fascinating us today, and there are so many that have done research back in history and looked at planetary transits and returns. They have actually come up with what a planet is likely to create in a person's or a nation's life, but at the same time it's not written in stone. You can also give it a very general meaning, but you can't precisely say who's going to do what and at what time and so on. And it's basically the same with psychology. You know the circumstances of a person's childhood and education and everything, and still you don't know how this person is going to turn out. Therefore, I guess that just like in a science like psychology, if you want to find confirmation for something, you will find it. And if you don't want to, you won't. The heavy, serious planet Saturn changes signs every 2.5 years. As it does, new difficulties, obligations, restrictions, duties lie ahead. Yet, no other planet creates the same opportunity for learning and development. It is Saturn that creates purpose in our lives and gives us the necessary means that help us live it. All that Saturn asks in return is responsibility, discipline, and hard work. If you do your part, he can help you strive towards goals and reach them. Psychologically, Saturn is about overcoming fears and blockages. By taking responsibility, you only have you to blame. Saturn is actually not that bad because it can bring responsibility, because we get a new job and it can make us put a lot of effort into things because we care, and it can bring about limitations because we fall in love and we are involved in a very serious relationship, and nothing is really long-lasting without the touch of Saturn. No relationship, friendship, or business. So if you know which house Saturn is going to affect next, it's good that you set up goals because you are already heading in that direction more or less, but you might do it on the thought level. But with Saturn in that house, it's about time to actually begin to work towards it, to put effort, because Saturn is about reality and the material world. It is not about dreams and fantasies. If you have your goals clear, it is more likely that Saturn is going to assist you instead of forcing you. If you, let's say, with Saturn in a certain house, you are losing your job, it's basically not because Saturn wants to punish you, but it is because you have another purpose in life and you want to find out what that ideal job is for you and to learn new skills and do what's necessary in order for you to get there. And that's how you get most out of Saturn, even if you for a while have to work with something that you do not like that much, but still you are learning something new, you are experiencing something new, and a new skill will always stay with you, and at some point in the future it can come to hand.